Chapter 13. Bao Pham worked the less savory night shift so his daughter could work in the daytime. He made all the donuts each dawn before he went home so she could have more time to study behind the counter. There were all sorts of crazy people in the city, but they seemed to be crazier after midnight, always weirdest before the dawn. He noticed a new batch of some weirdos coming his shop's way. They better pay for something every 20 minutes or out they would go, like the rest of them. His shop was currently empty and peaceful, but he needed more business. He watched these three new possible hassles, or maybe even dangers, approach. They were strung out on something. Hopefully it would give them the munchies. There was a brown-haired young guy walking slouched over while a pretty blonde girl with black lipstick was rubbing his back. The guy was wearing jeans and a black t-shirt with some rock band on it, but the two girls were in white dress shirts that weren't buttoned all the way up, and slacks. Their clothes did not match their faces or their friend. The other black-haired girl seemed distant from the other two. Her eye makeup was smeared. Bao always noted the specifics and features of any new clientele in case he would later have to recite the details for a police officer's statement. They came in and the guy asked to use the bathroom. He told them they had to buy something, all of them. Bao braced for the altercation. They ordered a dozen variety pack and 3 large cups of coffee. He thought they looked like they needed sleep more than coffee, but he didn't really care. He demanded the money before he would get started. He would uncrinkle all of their wadded-up single bills and count all the change first to make sure it was enough. The blonde girl had a wallet instead of a purse and paid in neatly folded bills that exceeded the amount and asked for no change. Bao remained suspicious. That did not fit his internal profile for them. He did not like to be wrong or caught off guard. He slid the bathroom key over the counter. Maybe they were tipping him because they would just steal it back, plus everything that he had in the register, so it didn't matter to them. Rob washed his face in the dingy little restroom. He splashed the pungent-smelling water from the rusty faucet onto his face and felt it startle his cheeks and forehead awake with coolness. The water was beading on his brow from all the oil that had accumulated from all the stress. He knew that the coming acne outbreak was inevitable. He didn't care. He let some water gather in his palms and slicked back his hair. He looked like shit, and the buzzing, sepia-toned light wasn't all too flattering either. He joined Sue and Michelle at their table. On the way there, he thanked the man for the restroom usage despite the man's demeanor. Sue and Michelle were both picking at a jelly-filled donut and sipping their generic coffee. Rob's coffee and donut were waiting for him on an unfolded napkin. He took a large bite out of it and got powdered sugar all over the lower half of his freshly washed face. He chased it with a sizable swig of Joe, wincing as the hot liquid scalded his tongue and throat. He didn't care. Michelle looked back and forth from Rob to Sue, waiting for one of them to start speaking. When she realized neither of them was going to, she said, "So what do we do now?" "Not a whole lot has changed, actually," Rob said. Sue brought her elbow up on the table and set it down with a loud clunk in protest, and so she could rest her head against her fist. "It hasn't," he continued. "Tonight just confirms everything we already knew. They come when you're alone." "We don't know that," Sue said patronizingly. "It came into a room that was totally empty." "Well, it didn't come into the room where I was because it wanted to catch me by surprise." "You don't know that either," Sue stated. "Yes, I do, goddammit!" The clerk crossed his arms and leaned forward on the counter to watch them with a scowl on his face. "Oh, what the hell are you looking at?" Michelle said to the man. He didn't answer. He only stayed there in his stern manner and continued to stare. The three of them just decided to ignore him and go on with their conversation. "Look, Sue," Rob went on. "I'm not just talking out of my ass here. I've been connected to this for a long time. My experiences and my gut say that you are safe if you are not alone. They can't come into that area anyway. Don't even try to argue that the light didn't affect it. I know, I saw, but I'm not going back there." "It's fine. I saw it run back through the wall after Michelle turned the lamp on it." He looked at Michelle and said, "By the way, good job on that. Quick thinking." "I wasn't really thinking," she said back to him. "I just did it." "Well, thank you for that." "You're welcome," she smiled at him. "Anyway, Sue, the apartment is safe as long as we stick together." Sue glared at him. "If it can come into a room by itself, what's to keep it from coming from that room and into the room where we are and getting all of us?" Rob hadn't thought of that. He guessed maybe the stakes changed when you called them to come. Maybe since he was trying to manipulate them, they could change their own set of terms. He wondered if the person to do the calling had to be the target person. His gut said yes to that. He wasn't going to say that to Sue. It was all still so uncertain. To satisfy her, he said, "We can leave the lights on in the rest of the apartment and sleep together in the bedroom like we have been. It's been working." He pressed his fingers into his temple and rotated them to try to alleviate the oncoming headache. "God, I only wish I knew what we were up against. I don't even know what to call them." "They're Kosianth demons," Michelle said. Rob and Sue stared at her with baffled expressions. "I was on the internet all day before I went to work. It took about 2 hours to find it. This one site was very thorough. I emailed the lady on the contact page. She got back to me in like an hour, saying she knew exactly what I was talking about." "They're what demons?" he asked. Michelle sounded it out. "Cosynth." Rob said the word too. It was unfamiliar on his tongue. "You are right, Rob," she continued. "She said light keeps them away, but there is no known way to kill them, and maybe they can't be killed because evil is evil and it will always be in the world, or something like that. What about needing to be solo when one comes?" "She says that's true, too. They can only come when the person they want is alone, and they can only come at night. It kind of makes sense. You were alone at night when it came. It just came into a different room." "See, Sue, it's fine. We're safe if we stick together, just like we've been doing." "I'm not fucking going back." She harshly enunciated each syllable. They both just looked at her, along with the man behind the counter. "Not tonight, anyway," she added. "Please, I can't. I just want to go to a hotel for the rest of the night and crash. I can go back after I'm rested, and it's daytime. I'll pay for it, okay?" "I'll pay for it, Sue," Rob said. "It's a good idea, anyway." He nodded and looked at Michelle to make sure she would be fine with that, too. She obviously was. Why wouldn't she be? After a pause so pregnant you would have thought the moment would have eventually given birth to a middle-aged child, Sue said, "Are you guys ready? I'm really beat." They said they were. Rob wolfed down the last of his donut while Sue and Michelle threw the remnants of theirs away. He got the pink, grease-stained box of the rest of the donuts, and they all grabbed their styrofoam cups and headed for the road. Sue drove further away from the apartment but stopped at the first hotel that came along. It was a Days Inn. Rob didn't have his wallet on him, and Sue realized she hadn't exactly stopped to grab her purse, so Michelle paid with her debit card. Rob promised to pay her back as soon as they got back to the apartment. She said not to sweat it. They got a room with 2 beds for $65. Rob offered to sleep on the floor if they wanted some room to each spread out. They said no. They would share a bed as usual, and he could use the spare. He insisted he was used to the floor, but they insisted too. Sue and Michelle got tucked in, ridding themselves of all their clothes but their underwear. He was in the chair by the window, removing his shoes. He was looking out at the early morning. He had so many questions for Michelle. He wanted to pick her brain until there was nothing left. However, he knew he would have to wait until after they woke up, which, even though would technically be the same day, would be tomorrow for them. They were chatting lightly, while the cable morning shows chatted lightly along beside them. Soon, Sue and Michelle drifted into sleep somehow. He knew he needed the sleep and was envious of them for getting some. He closed his eyes and figured it would come eventually for him. Sleep came much later. Rob woke up all stiff and aching a few hours after he finally dozed off. He hissed breath in between his teeth as he sat up. His ribs felt bruised. Michelle was in the shower. "Morning," he said loudly to her over the water. She had the door open, but the curtain was enough to shield his view from anything more than just abstract colors and shapes. "Oh, hey, Rob. Hope I didn't wake you." "No," he said heavily. "Just couldn't sleep anymore." Right then Sue came in the front door carrying a bag full of breakfast from Denny's and 3 cups of coffee clutched carefully to her chest with one arm. She kicked the door closed behind her as he got up to help. "Morning," she said to him. She set the meal on the small table by the TV. There were 3 to-go boxes and miniature plastic utensils. "Hey," he said gently to her. "All right, you guys, I've got pancakes and scrambled eggs for all." Michelle came out to join them. "Smells great," she said, wrapped in a towel with beads of water still on her shoulders. "Dig in," Sue said. Rob's stomach was growling. They sat on the edges of the beds to eat since the table couldn't accommodate all of them. They began in silence. Then Sue said, "I'm sorry about the way I was last night, you guys. I feel much better now." "Good," Michelle said with eggs in her teeth. "Sue, I'm so sorry. I made a promise to you, and I guess somehow I broke it," Rob said. "I'm not holding that against you. We all went in on it knowing the risks, and we all came out of it. As far as I'm concerned, you did keep your promise. We're cool. More than." He smiled, relieved. "Michelle, I want to ask you some more questions." He was picking at his food with the tiny fork despite his appetite. "Shoot," she said. "Sue, does it bother you if we talk more about it?" he asked her. "Rob, I know I wigged out on you guys last night, but I'm okay. I'm even fine with going back to the apartment today and sleeping there tonight. You were right. Nothing has changed. It's just as weird as ever." She said that last part to him, trying to get him to smile. He gave her a small one. "And maybe Michelle," Sue looked at her, "can fill us in more on what we're dealing with." "I can try," Michelle suggested. "Like I already said, they're called Cosynth demons." "Demons," Rob repeated the word. He looked like he tasted something bad, but it wasn't the food. That's what the site said. We don't know if they can die. We know they don't like light, and we know they only come at night when the person they want is alone. Apparently there's been some sort of epidemic. I guess that's the closest word for it. It's been going on for a couple of years now, but it's getting worse. It's happening a lot more right now. The victims have been abducted or killed by them. Witnesses talk about the usual signs, breaking sounds, kids complaining about monsters before they disappear, stuff like that. Only the people who know about these things know to question if it is their doing. The major authorities don't know about any of this. It's a very small group watching for the signs. We should help them out, Sue said. How? Michelle asked. Rob looked at her intently. We've got to get the word out. I mean, we're keeping Rob safe. Kind of. And these things are pretty simple for people who think they're targets to do. We've got to let them know what those things are. Rob nodded but said, No one is going to believe us, Sue. We can't run around news stations yelling that demons are coming. Don't stay alone. That wouldn't do any good. We can show them, she said. No, he said firmly. It's too dangerous. Plus, I don't think people will do something even the tiniest bit life-altering in advance from a stint on the news before they're gone after, which may be too late by then. They won't do it even if it's just as simple as keeping the lights on. They won't do it for such a crazy reason. However, on the ironic side, no one is going to do that for anything short of a crazy reason. Michelle just wanted them to talk it out. We can probably save lives with what we know, Rob. We can't just sit on it because we're afraid of looking stupid. I know, and that's not why I want to be careful. I don't care how we look. It's just that it'd be a waste of crucial time and it wouldn't do any good. He reiterated, I do have something in mind about that, though. I don't think I have a choice but to do it. You have to play with notoriety more than credibility here. What is it? I don't want to say yet. I'm not sure enough of it, but I will figure it out soon. Anyway, Michelle, is there something more we need to know? Probably, she began. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go through everything yet. I want to drop by the library again and print some of this stuff out. Sue, I think we should both call in sick tonight. We can just say we caught the same bug from each other. Sure, she answered. I can ask Rhonda to cover me. She needs the hours, and she could really cover both of us and double her tips, so that's fine. You guys don't have to do that, Rob jumped in. I can hang out at the diner with you guys or in public places till you get off, or even sit alone with all the lights on. This is actually real easy to deal with. I don't want you two to get in trouble at work over this. I mean, take the day off if you want to, but don't do it just for me. Over this? Just for you? Sue half laughed. I'm having trouble thinking of a better reason. Besides, it's cool. We're in good with the manager. Michelle made a pff sound with her lips. Sue continued speaking through the sound. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. Okay, he said. When they were finished, Sue said, All right, let's go. They gathered their things and headed back to the apartment. On the drive there, Michelle said to Rob from the back seat, I can't believe you found out so much so fast. I've been dealing with this for as long as I can remember, and you spend an afternoon at a computer and already know more about it than I do. I don't know about that, she said back from the passenger seat. And it wasn't just an afternoon. It was 2 if you count all that time in the library. Wow, 2 days. It's taken me 22 years. Well, I'm glad I could help, but I don't think I should take so much credit. After all, the site I got the info from, I clicked on by accident. Rob laughed. Happy accident? There were so many listings I meant to click on the one below it. Rob was bemused and shook his head. I'm glad you didn't. Sue joked from the driver's seat. You should have left that part out, Michelle. You know, I don't know if I want you doing my online taxes this year. Oh, please, she retorted. You don't even know how to plug a computer in. You're more than welcome to do them yourself. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll be good, Sue laughed. They pulled into the lot of their building a few minutes later. The building looked ominous with the thickly clouded sky as the backdrop for it. The wind was sweeping the clouds southward very quickly, and in one perspective, it seemed the building was moving while the sky was still. They entered the complex through the back door and took the elevator. It was the old kind that had to be opened manually. They had to pull the heavy exterior door open on its tough hinges and then, without letting it force its way shut, which was usually done by propping it with one's back, they had to slide the squeaky metal collapsing gate open and then get in and just let both doors slam shut with them inside. The entire elevator would shake from the force of the slam. They were all very tired, but the fates were tested every time someone chose not to use the stairs. They rode up in silence and looked up at that imaginary point which everyone seems to watch once they're in an elevator. It jolted at their stop, causing them to quickly lurch forward and then backwards to maintain their balance. Rob opened the doors for them, with some effort, and let the doors slam shut again once they were all out.